Welcome, Kylie. Kylie is here with us today. She is my beautiful sister, and she's going to share her adoption journey with us. So, Kylie, let's start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. My name's Kylie, like she said. My husband and I have been married for 10 years this June. We have 2 little boys. Our oldest, Hutch, is adopted. And then 6 months after he was born, I found out I was pregnant after trying for a couple years with a lot of struggles and a couple miscarriages. That one stuck. So we have 2 boys a year apart, and they're 2 and 3.
And they're the cutest things ever.
We're as tired and crazy as we seem, but super blessed.
Yes. All right, so we're just going to jump right in.
Perfect.
What made you want to adopt?
Well, like I had said, we struggled with infertility for a couple of years. 2 of my miscarriages were pretty early on. So they were heartbreaking, but they came and went just as fast. But my third one, I was 10 weeks along, and we had heard heartbeats. We had multiple appointments. As you know, you and your kids were at this appointment with us, excited to hear a heartbeat again. And I think that was very traumatic for my husband and I. More so, I mean, for him especially, definitely, but more so for me, because losing that child, I lost the chance in my eyes to become a mother. And I really felt like I wasn't going to ever be able to be one. And shortly after that third miscarriage, I had an impression to adopt. And I was not open to it. Yeah. I am not somebody who likes to take shortcuts in life, so the easy road out. Joke's on me. Adoption is not easy or the shortcut. But at the time, I just thought that maybe it was my emotions playing tricks on me of, I'll adopt a baby if I can't make a baby. And so I was pretty closed off to it. I was also closed off to it because I don't know how much you've told this podcast, but Mackenzie and I were adopted by our stepdad when we were 12 and 14. And even though all 4 of my parents, my mom, my dad, my stepdad, my stepmom, they all loved us as much as they could possibly love us, it didn't take away the pain of my birth dad signing away his rights. And at 12 years old, you remember that day, you know? Yeah. And even though I love my dad and my birth dad so much, it doesn't take away the pain that you feel from that. So I was really closed off to adoption because I knew that as a mom, I would love that child fiercely, but that love couldn't cure the things that he was going to experience. And so I was pretty closed off to it. And then about a year later, maybe under a year, just under a year, again, I had a really strong impression to adopt. And we weren't closed off to it, but we weren't searching for it.
Yeah.
And then literally that Saturday, I had a really strong feeling to adopt. And that Tuesday, we had just purchased a house and we were sitting at the dinner table in this big empty house. And I said to my husband, like, why do we have this house? We don't even have a family. We will never have a family. Like, what are we doing making roots somewhere? I mean, it really messed with my identity and where I wanted to be and where I thought I was going.
Yeah.
And so we had a big conversation about it. He didn't want to try again for a while. And I was gung-ho.
Well, it's heartbreaking to have to keep going through that.
Yes. And I think it was even harder for him watching me go through it.
Yeah, and there's nothing he can do.
Yes, because as a woman, and definitely my personality is I'll carry all the trauma I need to carry to get to where I need to go. Yeah, exactly. So I was okay. Not okay, but I wanted to try again. And I appreciated him kind of seeing what I couldn't see in myself, that I was struggling a lot more.
Yeah.
Anyways, he was really nice and went to buy us a new Apple TV for our new house so that I could watch This Is Us, because how else do you cope but through TV? And
This Is Us.
And This Is Us.
This Is Us. All about adoption.
Really, it helped. Yeah. It was helpful, but I, at the time, wasn't seeing it as that. I was just seeing it as a beautiful family that I wanted to have, you know?
Yeah.
Mandy Moore has a lot of things I don't have. She can sing. She can. I'm just really jealous. No, I'm just kidding. So
you have a great voice.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyways, so I went upstairs and you had called me like 5 times during this conversation with my husband. And I was like getting so bugged at you. Like, dude, I will call you tomorrow. Like, I'm having a serious conversation with my husband. So I went upstairs and I called you back, and you, just like with this podcast, you just jumped right into it. You just said,
Yeah.
Kylie, Molly Gadd, she was a church leader when I was 13 when we lived in Mississippi. And she had reached out to you through Facebook. A lot of, because you had, you're in the adoption world. So you had placed your birth son, and she reached out to you, and she had said, I know Matt and Kylie have been married a long time and they don't have any kids. I don't want to be presumptuous, but do you think that they would be open? One of my best friend's daughters is looking to place. And if not, would you know anybody else in kind of the adoption world?
Yeah.
And so it was really interesting to me that Saturday I'd had a big impression to adopt. And then we are the parents who get pregnant without trying in the adoption world. Like, I understand that. And I have a lot of sympathy for people who don't have this experience and who wait for years and years. Even empathy, because we did that, just not when trying to adopt, but in, experiencing infertility. So I recognize how blessed we are. So after I got off the phone with you, I immediately sat down, I said a prayer, I opened up my scriptures, and I came across a verse that just said, I got this strong impression as I was reading it, that my son's birth mom would need me to heal, and that I would need her to heal, because I was very broken at the time. And as you can imagine, she was experiencing her own world of fears and emotions that go into that. And so I felt really strongly about it from the very beginning. And my husband was surprisingly open-minded, which he hadn't been to adoption. He came home thinking we were watching a show, and I was like...
Little did he know.
Yes. And I was shaking and crying. I'm just like, we have this opportunity, and I don't know if it's something we want to do, but I feel really, really good about it. So that next weekend, we flew out to Florida, which is where Hutch's birth mom is from. And, we had been texting back and forth a little bit before then, just introducing ourselves and whatever. So we flew out to Florida, met their family. And I mean,
it was like right around this time too, wasn't it? It was right around Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Or was that the second time you went?
The second time we went was for Thanksgiving. So the first time we went was actually the end of September. And she was 15 weeks along. And it was love at first sight, even with her. Something that if you haven't been through it, you probably don't know, but I love Hutch's birth mom as much as I love my son. You grow this connection, this understanding that she is doing something for me that I cannot do. And in turn, I will raise her son, which at the time she can't do. And you form this bond, especially when they're 15 weeks along.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time left, and so we went to Hutch's first ultrasound, found out he was a little boy, and it was magical. And so for us, honestly, I never felt good about trying for kids. I never did. I had a lot of struggle inside myself when we decided to start trying. And this was like the missing piece I never knew I needed. It was just, I knew it was right from the moment I met her and saw him on the ultrasound. I knew it. And she felt the same way.
Yeah. Such a cool story. Yeah. I'm trying not to cry.
Thank you.
I'm saving my tears for later because I know they're about to come. Okay. So I know you don't like posting on social media.
I've been off it for 1.5 years.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I made you post on your story asking your friends, your family, what questions they have for you about adoption. I think you and I were kind of surprised by some of the questions that you got.
Yeah.
People can be ruthless.
Yes, they can.
But again, we're here to answer all sides of adoption, and we're here to answer those hard questions. And we get those questions all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even to our faces. Mm-hmm. Me being a birth mom, you being an adoptive mom, I'm sure, people can relate to that.
Yeah.
So the first question that you got was, because you adopted and then you had your own biological son. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to know if it was easier taking care of a newborn that was adopted, and because you didn't have to go through the postpartum phase. Yes. Would you say that's true?
I would say 1,000%. I experienced postpartum after my third miscarriage. I had a lot of postpartum anxiety, and I'd never struggled with anything like that.
Yeah.
So it was like some purely magical, not to be insensitive to Hutch's birth mom, because I know somebody had to experience all of that.
Yeah.
But on my end, it was magical sleeping 8 hours a night up until I brought home this perfectly sweet little baby, and having no healing, no anything, which was horrible. Afterbirth for me with Milo, my second son, was horrible. So yes, I can't even sugarcoat it. It was brilliant. If Hutch's birth mom would have all my kids, I would happily let her do it. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
You're just so clear-headed. So when you have a newborn, it's like you don't overreact, and you don't, because you're just like, yeah, no, I slept 8 hours yesterday. So like, it's okay. You're up all night. Like,
right.
We're good. Like, yeah.
Well, and especially when it's your first kid. And
yes.
You can do that.
And you never thought you'd be a mom. So for me, I was on a high.
You were just so excited to have him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We do have an open adoption. Prior to you placing your birth son and me going through this experience, I thought if I ever did it, I wanted a closed adoption. I wanted it to be my little family, and I didn't want anything to infringe on that. I didn't.
Yeah. And from a birth mom's point of view, I also felt like that. I wanted a closed adoption just because I wanted him to feel whole with his family and just have it be his life. And it was actually the adopted mom, who I absolutely love. She came to me and was like, I would really like for us to do an open adoption. And I was like, okay, like I'm open to it. We'll play around with it. We'll see how it goes. And she's like, yeah, we'll just take like one step at a time. And I think it's different for everyone. And it sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And so for us, in my situation, it's been awesome to have an open adoption.
Well, and that I saw that. I got to be a part of that. Right. And I got to see that. And so for me, and then, you do your own research, and you see a lot of positive things that come from having an open adoption. So I was very pro open adoption by the time I had met Hutch's birth mom. And it was the exact same scenario, actually. She didn't want an open adoption. And I told her that she gets all the say in this. She does. She gets all the say in everything up until she signs those papers. And that I would always stand by what she wanted to do. And then I just told her that I really felt good about an open adoption. And as the relationship progressed, again, I feel incredibly blessed to have this relationship with Hutch's birth mom. She said, with anybody else, I couldn't have done it, but I can't imagine you not being in my life. Like, I would love an open adoption. So we do have an open adoption. Hutch's birth mom lives out of state, so we actually have not seen her since she gave birth to Hutch, which was 3.5 years ago, give or take.
Has it really been that long?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really has been that long. And a lot of people don't know this, but Hutch's birth mom came to live with us prior to giving birth to Hutch. So she has an older son, and her best friend and her son came and lived with us for 6 weeks. And we got really, really close. And then after placing Hutch, she then stayed for another week before she went back home. So we got to spend a lot of time with her, but it has been 3.5 years since we've seen her. So we talk, we text, we FaceTime sometimes. She's young. She's got a life, and she's not wanting to be dragged down by us and our kids and, real life. But we talk to her. We love her. We think about her all the time. It's open, but it's been different for us. Like you said, everything's different, and it's been different than what I see with you, where you live 20 minutes from your birth son. Right. And so you spend the holidays and birthdays, and you guys do things together, and we haven't had the opportunity to do that with Hutch's birth mom. But we are planning a visit soon. We're excited.
That's good.
Yeah.
We love her. She really is so awesome.
She's one of a kind.
Yeah. She's beautiful. Like, stunning.
Oh, really? We hit the adoption jackpot. I say that all the time. Like, my son he's beautiful. Yeah. He is a different level beautiful.
Yeah. All right. So this next question, again, you don't know who sent these to you.
Nope. I don't have any idea.
Okay. So this one, they must know who you are, because they know that you have a son that you've adopted and a biological son. And they wanted to know if you love them the same.
They actually said Is it even possible for you to love them the same?
Is it even possible? Sorry. Is it even possible to love
And be honest. Don't just say what people want to hear. And I don't feel like they know me very well because I don't know if I've ever once in my life said what people wanted to hear. I'm very honest. And so I'm more than happy to be very honest to this question. And I'll start with saying this like, even now I get that shame response that Brene Brown talks about of like, I get kind of lightheaded and my legs go numb because this question, it sort of, I mean, it obviously bothers me, but people are curious and that's okay. I'm happy to talk about it, but it also is, it is so complex.
Right.
The simple answer is 1000%. I love both my children the same. I really do. And that is not, I don't care if it's what you want to hear or not. I love both my children the same. I am a mom to my boys equally and the same.
And you can see that. Like you would never even know that Hutch was adopted.
I appreciate that a lot. And you know what? I know this isn't the same for everybody. And I know I'm very fortunate, but I forget Hutch is adopted. Like when he was a baby, I would just be like chatting with all my friends. Like, yeah, mine did that too, blah, blah, blah. And then they'd talk about nursing. And I would be like, oh, I actually didn't nurse him because he was adopted. And it just was never a thing for me. I am so incredibly proud that Hutch is adopted. I am not sad. I am not jealous of Hutch's birth mom that she got to give birth to him. I am so freaking proud that he is adopted.
Yeah.
And this question, I think, hit me really hard. It happened to come in after a day that, like, Hutch had thrown 4,000 tantrums since preschool, and he wouldn't eat, and he had the runs. And we actually ended up getting the stomach flu, so it made a lot of sense. So then I get this question, and I'm just like, of course I love my son, but he's driving me nuts today. And I've thought a lot about that, and I really have. And I think as an adoptive mom, I feel a lot of guilt when I feel that. Especially a mom who went through infertility. Like, I should be cherishing every one of these moments. And I do. And I think you'll see with my relationship with my boys that I do. I cherish motherhood. I love motherhood. However, sometimes my son drives me nuts. And sometimes he throws tantrums like a 3-year-old boy. And guess what? If you know Milo, he throws about 4 times more the tantrums than Hutch
he's
does.
Like my kids.
And he is like so intense. And so for me, this question hit me really hard because, yes, I love my boys the same.
So let me flip this too.
Yeah.
Do you feel like Milo is treated any different? Like, do you feel like you give Hutch more attention because he is adopted?
I think here, and we talked about this earlier, and I'll share it here, but everybody has hard things in their lives. And Brene Brown says, like, nobody gets out of this life unscathed. Everybody goes through trials. Yeah. What's hard for us is that we know Hutch's trial, not his only trial, but one of his biggest life trials we knew from the moment we chose and agreed to adoption. Right. Where we don't see that in Milo. Yeah. So to Milo, it's like, bro, you've got the world handed to you. You're okay. Where for Hutch, it's a lot more of a tender thing. And Hutch is, if you know Hutch and you know Hutch, he is
love that kid.
The most tender little boy. I've never met a more tender soul. Yeah. I've never met a kinder, like, Milo will come in full swinging and Hutch just, like, he doesn't even, he just like can't even punch, like he's tender. And I think so much about this. Hutch healed me. He healed me. And nobody could have reached me the way that Hutch has reached me. And to me, I don't care if my blood is in those veins. That boy and I have a connection that runs so much deeper to me than blood. That he saved me. And I remember when he was a couple months old, I actually posted on social media, which is rare for me. Mm-hmm. And I said, this is the first time I feel like myself again. Like, I got myself back because I felt the pure love of my perfect little son. Yeah. And I loved him from when he was in the womb, 15 weeks gestation. Like, I loved him. And honestly, I'll be 100% honest, I full on expected to connect with Milo immediately. Yeah. Because, Hutch came out of his birth mom and we were actually in the room, which was incredible. My husband cut the cord. And so I saw it all. I didn't miss anything. And he's sitting in the warmer and I didn't recognize him. And that was weird for me. Like,
Yeah.
This is my son forever. And I had no idea what you would look like. I had Googled pictures. I had like everything. Like,
I remember that.
I'm like, Hutch could look like this, and these are his genes, and he could look like this. But I had no idea what he'd look like. So I full on expected to just connect a little faster with Milo. Yeah. And I couldn't have been more dead wrong. Like, Milo came out, guess what? Didn't recognize him either. Like, he didn't look like what I thought he was going to look like. Yeah. It was also my first time seeing him, you know? And one thing that's even cooler is I was so in tune with Hutch. Like, yeah, I knew Hutch's needs from the moment he came home with me. Like,
mother's intuition.
Yes. And I had that instantly with Hutch, more than I did with Milo. Yeah. I remember Milo being like 2 months old, and I'm like, I don't know what you need. And I never had those moments with Hutch. Like, I knew Hutch's needs, and I still do. Hutch and I have a connection that like it's just different. And I know I'm incredibly blessed, but I think that's why this question just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It's totally fine to ask. I mean, I ask myself that question all the time. Am I treating these boys differently based on their situations? And I do think my husband, Milo's a spitting image of me.
He really is.
His personality, he looks just like me. And so maybe I can like understand Milo better on some things than I can Hutch, but Hutch is exactly like my husband.
He really is.
Him and Matt are like
same personality,
cut from the same
everything.
Cloth. Totally. And like all of my husband's nieces and nephews, like Hutch is just like them. And Milo's just like my side of the family and all of your kids. And so I will say my husband is partial sometimes to Hutch. But I think it really comes down to because he can understand Hutch, because it comes more natural. Whereas a mom, you just don't really see it like that. You know, it's just like, they're my boys. There's no question in my head.
I have 5 biological kids. Every single one of them is so different. I think I'm an awesome mom. And then I have another child. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yes.
And it's a different, you have a different connection to each kid, and it's very unique. And I think like by that question, you can just say, it's just like any other siblings.
Yes.
They're going to be different. They're going to have different needs. I'm going to connect more when they do something like this, and I'm going to connect more when they do this. Yes. And it's just like having even boys and girls, right? It's just different.
I'm so glad that you said this, because I'd forgotten something that I wanted to say about that. And that is that, well, like you said, I think of my mom, our mom. You know, like her and I are very, very similar in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And all growing
both
up.
Libras.
Yes, both Libras. We both speak the truth. Yeah.
I know. That's why we like you.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you two get along so well.
That's why I love her.
I've prepared her for you.
Behind the camera.
Yeah.
We love her.
We do. So my mom and I were very similar. We have 6 siblings. There's 6 of us total.
Yeah.
And like I can pinpoint the people who are more like mom, that maybe she understood more, but I've never once questioned if mom loves all of her kids the same.
Right.
You know, and one thing I think that gets so caught up in adoption is just because Hutch knew this trial and we knew this trial from when he was born. Yeah. That's not always the answer. That's not always the reason he's acting out. That's not always the reason that he's having a hard time. And I have to remind myself a lot of that. Of like, you know, sometimes if he's having a hard day, I'm like, it's the primal wound, or it's, you know, it's this. And like, I don't have him in the right play therapy, or, you know, it's all these different things. When in reality, like every time I'm so hard on myself, he like gets sick that night, and like that's what it was. Or like he didn't like dinner, and a lot of 3-year-olds don't like dinner. Like I think we associate a lot with adoption just because he happens to be adopted. Right. But Hutch is so much more than a boy who was adopted. Hutch is a 3-year-old boy who has a range of emotions that he probably would have regardless, you know? And I think it's really important as an adoptive mom to see that and to allow that, and to not project my own insecurities of, am I doing enough as an adoptive mom?
Well, I mean, I think you could say that for any mom. I think that's why, I say this, in fact, to mom all the time. Yeah. I'm like, I feel like you had a kid that had like a different piece of every personality that you have. Yes. And it's a part of you that you need to work on. Yes. And that's why it's so hard sometimes to like understand your kids and to like, but again, that mother instinct, you know exactly what they need.
Because that's what I was going to say is like every time I'm questioning if I'm doing this right with Hutch,
Yeah.
Milo goes and does the same thing. And I'm like, it's just a boy. It's just a little boy. It's just a boy with a big range of emotions. Like and that's perfectly okay. And I want to take that stipulation away of like, because he's adopted. No, Hutch is smart and he's kind and he's caring and he's also adopted and it's freaking incredible.
Yeah.
And Milo is spunky and funny and adorable.
He's hilarious.
And he wasn't adopted. And that's okay. Like they can be themselves. And I look at my boys and we are very fortunate. Nobody never ever knows that Hutch is ever adopted. They don't look at us and think like he doesn't belong. In fact, our boys look similar. They resemble each other. And, I just never think about it. I never think about my boys as one's adopted, one's not. I just... These are my kids. This is my life. And I am incredibly grateful to be a part of the adoption community.
So the next question, and I'm going to read it word for word because I didn't get the other one correct. Thanks for...
I won't correct you again, I promise.
No, thank you for finishing.
Actually, I don't promise. But.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't make any promises. Okay, this one is also kind of hard to answer. Have you ever experienced adoption guilt? If so, how did you work through it?
I love that question. Because it's not talked about.
Yeah.
But absolutely. I mean, when you grow such a close personal relationship with a birth mom, you, like I said, I loved her like my child. And then having a sister who was placed and knowing exactly what emotions she was about to experience.
Right.
Because I saw you go through it and I was with you, it was even harder for me. And I had a really hard time coping that the happiest day of my life was the hardest day of her life. And that ate me alive for the first couple months of Hutch's life. Like, ate me alive.
Yeah.
So, yes, of course, I felt adoption guilt. And I make light of it, like, no postpartum, this is great. And it is. But, like I said, somebody's experiencing that. And I never forgot that. I never didn't think about that as I was raising Hutch. Is somebody's experiencing their milk drying up. Somebody's experiencing stitches in places you don't want stitches, and a body that like she didn't start out with. And I think in those times it's easy for a birth mom to think like, what did I do? What did I do and why did I put my body through this? And I carried that. I felt that. And I knew she was going to experience that because I saw it with you and I loved and knew her. And so, yes, I think it's common. And if you're feeling it, it's normal. And it's not bad. It's okay to experience that and to recognize that the sacrifice somebody else gave. But at some point, you have to recognize your own sacrifice that you're making. And you have to recognize the hard work that you're putting into it. And I think what really helped me with my guilt was talking to my birth mom about it.
I was just going to say, I think communication is key.
Yes.
We said, I don't care if it's going to hurt my feelings. I don't care if it's going to make you uncomfortable. We have to have open communication. We have to be on the same page. And I think like she'll call me one day and be like, no, that wasn't cool. I'm like, you're right. Sorry. And then I'll call her and be like, hey, like that made me a little uncomfortable. Yeah. But she's awesome. So
she is awesome.
Yeah. So communication, I think that's huge. And I think that's key.
I think it's actually like the key. Like it was the same
thing. Any relationship, really.
Yes. And it was the same thing with us and Hutch's birth mom of like, we said to her, you need to, like, whatever you need to communicate that to us. And we need to honor those. And, vice versa. And it hasn't been like, there have been times in this relationship where she has said like, please don't send pictures and please don't reach out. I need some time. And we honored that. And we said, okay. And we didn't. And then we waited a couple months and she did what she needed to do to cope and heal. And I think you have to allow that. And you just can't take anything personal because when at the end of the day, like she is what I couldn't be to Hutch. And I'm okay with that. That is okay. Like you are what your son's adoptive mom couldn't be for him. Yeah. And she's trusting me to be everything else for him. Yeah. And so I'm okay with him needing that relationship with her and her being in our lives and still relying on me and me relying on her because like it's what adoption is. And when you can take that out and you can do what's best for the child, it just clears everything else up.
Yeah. Okay. So here is another question that you got. This sounds like someone that knows the both of us. Mm-hmm. It says, didn't your sister place her child for adoption? Is it an uncomfortable situation for the two of you? How is your relationship now?
I love this question because no. Sorry.
It's quite the opposite.
It is. I feel like, you know, we talk a lot about my sister's sacrifice. Your sacrifice is partially why Molly reached out to you about us. And so it was your sacrifice right from the beginning that influenced me becoming a mom. And I think we always looked at it like that. And we always have seen the full circle of supporting each other and loving each other. And I actually think it's really incredible that when you are really struggling with the fact that you placed, you have an adoptive mom to reach out to who's also your sister.
Yeah. And I think we've had many hard conversations where we both kind of walked away like, okay, that sucked, but I'm so glad that I got that. Yeah. I'm so glad I got that other perspective. And I think you and I have actually helped each other so much in being able to cope with what we're going through.
Yes.
Having someone to lean on, someone who, even though we're on the opposite side of things, we still understand what that person's going through.
Well, because you think about it and you think, okay, my sister placed for adoption, so I experienced that as well. It was different. Right. I wasn't the birth mom, but your sister struggled with infertility and then adopted. So it's interesting. We'll be talking and we'll be agreeing with each other so much.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, actually, hold on. I actually can see the other side, even though as your sister, I have nothing but empathy for you. And I actually feel why you feel that.
Right.
But I have a shoe-in on also why she may be doing this. And I know I've leaned on you a ton as a birth mom of just like, I said this to my birth mom. Was it too much? Like, was it too this? Like, did she want me to say, you know, like, is this present okay? Is it overstepping? Like, it's actually just been an incredible thing. And I feel so fortunate.
I do too.
To be able to talk openly. I mean, we have a very open relationship. I don't think there's much between us that goes unsaid.
No.
And so I think that's
which could be a good or a bad thing.
It works for us.
Yeah.
We're not endorsing that, but for us it really it works. And so no, I think it's incredible and I am thankful every day for you.
Me too. I'm grateful for you. Okay, this is the last question. What advice would you give someone who's just starting the adoption process?
Hold on tight. It's a road, and we were fortunate to have matched with a mom before we even started our process. There's so much that goes into it as an adoptive mom that I had no idea. I mean, even down to like getting approved by the state to adopt. You know, they search your home, you go through all these interviews, you fill out all this paperwork, you have references, they actually reach out to your references, you know, like it's a big process. I would say hold on and look for support. I was telling you this, like there wasn't TikTok or Reels or even podcasts really when we adopted Hutch.
Yeah.
So I didn't know, I had no idea what to expect. And I think I could have worked through a lot of my trauma, if you will, or experiences from being adopted myself if I would have seen just some other people talk about it, because I didn't recognize things in myself until I projected those as fears of what Hutch might feel.
Right.
So I would say reach out, and if you don't know anybody, now you do. I'm an adoptive mom. She's a birth mom. Reach out to us. Like, we will support you because you need that. I wish I would have had, actually, I don't wish. Who you placed your son with, she is a dear friend of mine. She is a lot of friend. Who helped me. Yeah, she's a family friend, but she's become a dear friend of mine. Her advice is actually what helped me keep my pregnancy with Milo based on what she had experienced, as well as a lot of the stuff I was struggling.
In a sense of, because of your...
I have MTHFR and PCOS, and she also has MTHFR.
Yeah.
And so what she didn't know at the time when she was trying for kids, she's 10 years older than me maybe, she really transferred a lot of that knowledge to me, and that really helped me make sure that I was on the right diet and medication and shots and injections and a bunch of other stuff for Milo.
Right.
And so we've been really close because she's also helped me so much with adopting and how to navigate that. And so if I didn't have her, I think I would have struggled so much more. So my advice is do a lot of research, but look at the positive as well, because it doesn't get talked about as much. And I think that's why we're here today. It's why we agree to put our hearts on the line.
Yeah, there's so much negativity around adoption. But
there's so much positivity that comes from it. And I know I'm the adoptive mom saying that, but I still see my son who was adopted, and I see his struggle, and I experienced that with his birth mom. And I try, I would reach out to the right sources and to the right people and get a full perspective, because there are things that you need to be aware of. Yes, but educate yourself. and be excited and be loving and be selfless, because somebody is sacrificing so much for you to be able to have a family, and be knowledgeable of that, recognize that.
Yeah.
And give a lot of love. We have a lot of love to give. And infertility kind of digs that out of you, but there's a lot in there. And I think just spread it to those around. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah. We really appreciate you coming in and sharing your story.